The year was 551 BCE, and the state of Lu in ancient China was in turmoil. Warlords battled for power, and the land was fractured by chaos and corruption. It was in this challenging time that Confucius, later known as Confucius, was born. His family, once part of the aristocracy, had fallen on hard times. His father died when Confucius was just 3 years old, leaving the family in poverty. From a young age, Confucius showed a hunger for learning and a desire to rise above his circumstances. Though his family had little, his mother instilled in him a sense of discipline and the importance of education. He read voraciously, studied history, and observed the world around him with a sharp and curious mind. As a young man, Confucius began his career as a government clerk, managing grain supplies and livestock. But even in these humble roles, his keen sense of justice and his vision for a better society stood out. He questioned the moral decay he saw in his leaders and dreamed of a world governed by virtue rather than force. He lived during a time when China was divided into warring states, and power was often used without wisdom or kindness. He believed that the key to a peaceful and orderly society was not through weapons or fear, but through wise leadership and moral education. He developed ideas about the importance of family, respect for traditions, and living with honesty and integrity in both personal and political life. At the age of 30, Confucius began teaching. His students came from all walks of life, farmers, merchants, and even nobles. He welcomed anyone eager to learn. Unlike many teachers of his time, Confucius didn't charge high fees for his lessons. He believed that education was the foundation of a fair and successful society and should be available to anyone who sought knowledge. Confucius taught not through long lectures, but through conversations and by setting a good example. He emphasized 5 key relationships: ruler and subject, parent and child, husband and wife, older and younger siblings, and friends. He believed that if people acted with sincerity and respect within these relationships, society would thrive. Confucius often traveled through the warring states of China, offering advice to rulers. He believed that a leader's strength came not from military power, but from strong moral character. He often said,
"A ruler who leads with virtue is like the North Star, steady and guiding."
However, many rulers, focused on power and conquest, dismissed his teachings as unrealistic. Despite these challenges, Confucius never gave up. He continued teaching, improving his philosophy, and inspiring more followers. He believed in persistence, famously saying,
"It doesn't matter how slowly you go, as long as you do not stop."
Later in life, Confucius returned to his home state of Lu and spent his final years gathering his teachings and conversations with his students into a book called the Analects. He passed away in 479 BCE, but his ideas continued to grow in influence. Over time, Confucianism became the foundation of Chinese culture, shaping everything from government to family values. Confucius was not a prophet or an emperor. He was a simple man with a strong desire to improve the world. He believed that living with virtue and gaining knowledge were the keys to a meaningful life. For him, true leadership came from self-discipline, kindness, and understanding others.